champions in 2 games against Spenu and just the 1 game against SKT where he actually asserted himself pretty well in a loss. We're going to come out to Champion Select. Edge is the really big factor to me. How does this change how KT wants to draft?
Yeah, and there's the Azir ban, and we already have some answers to that. They have the same questions about Edge. What can we take away from this guy? And of course, Goong, not an Azir player, so that is not very relevant. Interesting that KT is banning the Rise here, because I feel that by Jin Air giving Duke the Rise and making Najin prioritize it, that they had, I would say, a good answer. They played around that very well. And if we look at Score and Someday, two of the stronger junglers in this league, you'd think they'd be able to control that pick.
And Jin Air in general, they played a really dangerous game against Najin. They gave them kind of their own noose to hang themselves, but actually were able to execute on giving away Rise and playing against it more impressively than I've seen in basically any scene. But in this situation, KT just want to take it out of the champion pool. Maybe it's one of those champions that kind of moves away some of Someday's champion pool, one of the champions who wants to break out. And if we do see, as you talked about, Score prioritizing more and getting Someday ahead, if Rise is a blocker champion, maybe smart just to ban it away.
Absolutely. So what is going to be the last ban here? Most teams ban Gragas against Watch. It's one of the few champions that he's really shown up on this season. And if you take that away, no, they are going to eliminate the Nautilus. Of course, big pick for Najin, not only in the support role, but Duke will play it as well. And that means that almost certainly Najin will take Gragas because Watch kind of needs every bit of help he can get.
And he wants to move away from the Evelynn as quick as possible. So in this pick and ban, Alistar and Nautilus banned away. You might not think that's big, of course, these are 2 big meta supports. 6-2 is pure on the Alistar, 4-2 on Nautilus. That's 14 out of his 19 games have been on those 2 supports. So champion pools are bound. We already mentioned 2 mid lane bans by Najin against Edge. Suddenly, when it comes to comfort picks across the board, not many available. If they do go for a very early Victor, that does kind of make me think that they're not confident on Edge on some of these other champions.
And Annie locked in right away. KT known as a very all-in team. They take the Victor as well. This may force Goong onto something like Cassiopeia. And I know you've got a fun stat on Annie.
You might be surprised, but the Annie priority, despite the fact that she saw, of course, that auto-attack range nerf, but both this week and in general, in all the games played, so there's been 102 games played in Champions so far this season, the highest win rate champion of more than 10 picks is Annie at 13-4, or 77% win rate, completely in the support role. It shows the priority. When we see double AD, the likes of Varus mid, these squishy backlines, Annie's one of the few champions with the instant cast CC to really be able to wreck their days.
Yep, so that is, and Fixers also played it quite well, so this is definitely something to expect from KT. They do prioritize that Victor, not only to deny Goong, and most likely, I mean, here's the other aspect of this, Papa Smithy. Goong also has been very successful with Zed into Victor in the past. He's not going to go for it tonight. It will be that Cassiopeia. That surprises me a little bit because in some ways you're playing right into Goong's hands, and instead he's going to take the safer pick, but one where he may not be able to dominate the matchup quite as heavily as we've seen in the past.
Maybe that's just a confidence pick for Goong. Even though he hasn't necessarily been winning on it, this is 4 out of his last 6 appearances have been on the Cassiopeia. Didn't look very convincing in Game 2 against Jin Air, but they've gone for comfort for Edge. They've picked up the Victor that he has already played in competitive. Now the Cassiopeia matchup, I don't really rate the Cassiopeia matchup into Victor. I mean, she can dominate the lane if she gets ahead at level 2 or takes Ignite, but can struggle with just the very easy line wave clear from Victor.
So OQ here. We've seen the Vayne Cassiopeia be a big priority for Najin. Do they actually want to go with it against the Sivir? OQ's played into that matchup quite a few times and been A-OK, but nope. It will be Corki. I actually think Vayne is a great pick here. They have the Gragas and the Cassiopeia. They could take Vayne Maokai, but they're not going to commit to that late game to the same degree. Interesting.
I actually agree with you on this point. There's 4 champions on Najin's side that can peel for a Vayne. In the backline, it looked like she'll be relatively safe. If you're going to, and I kind of wondered, would Najin throw out the gambit of leaving the Sivir open? You know Arrow's going to snap that away with a 7-2, 11.3 KDA record, and then just go for the laning option, go for the Vayne who can really overtake Sivir and take her out, both in kind of a split push sense, but in the team fight to be very safe. Going for Corki tells me they must prioritize early skirmishing, early fights around Dragon, because Vayne, maybe that would have tipped their hand towards the mid to late regardless.
I still think Vayne is definitely the best pick here. I think they have enough to deal with
magic
it.
damage as well.
And you're putting OQ on one of his best picks right there also. So bit confusing to me. KT, they need some primary engage. Renekton, interesting. This is one of Sunday's big picks all time. I am concerned that they don't have any primary. Well, they have the Annie for the primary engage here, so they've got it locked down. And Renekton has gotten some buffs recently, but this is the first time he's been played all year in Korea.
And we have to wonder, is there indirect buffs to Renekton? Because there's an item like Black Cleaver. You're going to buy at least 1 or 2 offensive items. Tiamat has for so long been the one item slot damage item, just because, again, you activate that Tiamat active and you cancel out of the cast animation for your W, but Black Cleaver would itemize very well. He really likes cooldown reduction, but finds it hard to itemize when there was a lot of cooldown reduction removed from Spirit Visage, which of course was a very common pickup from Renekton. I saw it back when I was casting the Oceanic scene a little bit since his buffs a few patches ago. It can be very powerful, but on paper at least, tank battles in the top lane.
Yeah, and over Sunday's career, Renekton is his most played champion. He's been picking it on and off meta, but not so far this year. 27 games played, 19-8 all time. So it always has been a big, big pick for him. And I've been waiting to see it, considering those buffs I thought were pretty decent. And now we will. Up against this Maokai. Black Cleaver going to do a lot of work for Sivir and Rek'Sai also. Great engage here from KT. Very fast composition. And interesting stuff. Well, we are going to be going into Game 1 here between KT Rolster and Najin mFire. Let's get into the match. Here we go. First game, Najin mFire versus KT Rolster. The battle to get out of 5th place. Exciting stuff starting already. We'll see if Goong can redeem himself a little bit on this Cassiopeia, at least against a top team. Of course, Edge coming in. Only 4 games in his 3 games so far. This is his 4th in the professional scene. Played a couple in the preseason, but way back in December of last year.
So we didn't see a lot of this in our series we cast together 2 days ago, but some very aggressive invades for vision. What teams were doing, instead of doing these aggressive invades, were really starting with an early jungle follow, not soloing down camps, but having the top laner and the jungler just really farm and giving perhaps solo Gromp experience to the top laner, for example, but continuing the faster jungle follow. Instead of going for the aggressive invades, 2 members of Najin back, but still 3-man in the bottom.
Well, I think KT really wants standard lanes here. There's a reason why they picked this Renekton. And also having that good level 1 through 5 with Sivir and Annie up against the Corki and Thresh lane. You can see the lane swap coming in from Najin. So will be a lane swap. That should favor Najin. Of course, Maokai going to have an easier time in the jungle early on. And look at what Someday is doing.
They have excellent vision in the enemy jungle, and it looks like he wants to solo out the Raptors as far as we can see.
Yeah.
That starts with his Q, of course. Not on the shortest cooldown at level 1, but relative safety with so much vision in the enemy jungle.
And the only information he needed was whether they were starting red buff or not. It doesn't matter that they walked through lane to go ahead and go for that. So he should be okay. Najin shouldn't see him doing this.
There's just no reason for them to walk over that area, despite it being so close when we have complete information with the observer mode toggled over. Steals away a camp, so that actually really slows down the jungle follow if they continue it as well.
Yeah, indeed it does. So they're going to walk up and actually be really confused right now that that happened. Start pinging over to the Wolves on the other side. Someday just going to join score for a follow afterwards. And now they are going to walk in. So actually KT doesn't know that they started on this side.
Yeah, they actually really outfoxed themselves in this particular situation. They thought they were going for a buff invade, find no camps at all.
So it's that happened because Najin walked through the brush in the lane and not from their base to go to that objective. So actually this ends up delaying KT more than anything else. They're going to try and see if they can get a dive right here.
But because of that ward at the red buff, there's no reason for anyone to enter lane and bottom, and there's a very realistic chance of a 3-buff start for Najin.
Absolutely. especially their ward just fading on the enemy red right now for Najin, and they can push this forward. Pure, this is a big commitment to this gank.
Well, they're worried about the fast push. Remember, this is Sivir in the bottom lane and Annie, who has a very safe auto attack. So they're looking for the fast push, or at least considering their options around bottom turret. The Trinket ward runs out at their own red buff. It looks like they won't be 3 buffed, especially with 3 members of Najin being sent bottom.
So, tower down at 50%. Let's take stock of this. OQ freezing in the top lane, so they don't have any tower pressure yet. And now Pure and Watch and Duke are all coming into the lane, but there's no one else there to take it as KT backs off and heads back to their own jungle on the camps that have spawned. So, a bit awkward early on. Like you said, KT, I think, outfoxing themselves right there, tried a tricky little lane swap, but their wards were enough to give them some information, but not enough.
If you try and work out who's been the big winner of the 4 minutes of hijinks, I guess you could say that Renekton was forced to use his teleports as a slight summoner advantage. They did manage to get the reverse push, so they basically got, this is KT, 50% damage on the bottom turret for no real cost. You look at the CS values, they're even between Corki and Sivir, so very even across the board. 50% turret damage for a teleport.
Well, that said, though, even though the CS, as we see some trading going down, nice W from Fixer, but as we see some trading going down, the nice thing for Najin is that they have this Corki going to be higher levels, and that is going to skip the point of the game where he is a little bit more vulnerable to the Sivir and hit level 6 where he can trade more evenly.
And just simply, it's Corki versus Renekton. It's a lane bully melee champion against one of the best, actually. If you're going to throw an AD carry top lane, Corki was always one of the most popular picks because you can get really aggressive. Watch may even flash here. Some days on about 200 health. Wait to see.
Oh, he goes for it, and there's the first blood. Watch coming into the top side, and Someday not going to use his flash right there. Was caught between a rock and a hard place. And that is rough already, giving OQ that big carry force from Najin, the first blood gold. And
we thought, you could see KT felt pressured in the bottom lane because Arrow actually used his heal to try and help Score get into unburrow range. So basically used a summoner for no result whatsoever. Kill goes over to the Corki, now level 5. What can a lane bully like Renekton, a very fiercely melee champion, maybe even arguably more melee than Hecarim, because of course his Q has a much lower uptime, do in a lane? Now against Maokai. Okay, so it's going to be Maokai, same level, double Dorans and a cloth armor, though. Huge item advantage for the Maokai.
Yeah, Someday got killed, went back, but he didn't have enough money to get what he wanted right there with only 8 CS before returning to lane.
Not even a second arm.
Yeah, and their Edge actually just going to get Petrifying Gaze, has to flash. Does a bit of trading with his Q and his E, but that is a gank that gets a nice couple of summoners out there using his heal also.
Yeah, Goon getting 2-for-1 offer. Gets both of Edge's summoners in exchange for his flash. Still has Cleanse available, and with Fixer maybe unleashed, because we had started with a lane sub, although with the return of 2v2s, Cleanse could still be very relevant as Fixer sniffs around mid lane.
Yeah, trying to get some deep wards in. Sivir playing back with that pickaxe right now, building into an Avarice Blade as a second item. So Arrow really not going to be very powerful for quite some time based off of this itemization.
It feels bad to be sitting on a Brawler's Glove, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Not an ideal time to back if you're Arrow. But KT, they need to make some plays on the map right now. I am a bit worried about them in the late game because Najin has this Maokai. It's going to get absolutely huge. Gragas, no slouch when it comes to late game tanking either. And Someday, you know, I'm not sure with these Renekton changes how much effect he's going to have compared to the Maokai in the late game.
Some of his damage was shifted towards the late game.
Yeah.
It felt like some of the buffs were definitely toned down what was at one point a very oppressive laning phase for some late game power. But where do you go on the item build? That's the big question that I don't think anyone's answered, just because we haven't seen much Renekton in the last year, you'd have to say, ever since Renekton versus Shyvana was the staple top lane matchup of the day.
Okay, well, Score just going to clear out some wards around the mid side. Cassiopeia going for the Scuttle Crab. And it's not Arrow, it's actually just the real crab.
Maybe later.
Maybe later. Get the 2-for-1 Scuttle Crab.
The dream.
So, Score going for the early Bomby Cinder here. No Sightstones yet for our junglers this early in the game. So all wards still must be bought. OQ taking a little bit of a bad trade right there, but Lantern helps mitigate some of the damage. And KT, you know, they need to start making some plays here. They have this Cassiopeia in the mid lane without flash. That is an open invitation for Rek'Sai and Annie to get there if they can. But with the wards and the pressure in the bottom lane, it does make things a bit more tricky.
So Watch is up top lane. Now, if he shows, there is potential for some dragon threat, although no defensive wards or clearing being done by KT. Of course, Watch showing himself should mean that it's relatively safe to answer with a dragon, but for now, kind of frustrated, sitting twirling his barrel in the brush.
I think somebody may know he's there. If we look, there's a ward right by the Gromp. So that would indicate that there's a strong possibility that Watch could still be going for a lane gank on the top side. Also, Someday has one defensive pink and tri-brush, so he has to be careful. Does not get ganked right there due to his cautious play, and here comes Score for a Raptor steal.
Definitely a fun buff to see. He's looking for the potential gank over to Goong. Goong steps up. There is space for this gank. No flash still available.
Watch is there. And everyone is there, actually. Even OQ. Score has to turn his back to the petrifying gaze and flash over the wall. OQ will get some free hits. Score a little bit lucky to escape from that one. His pink wards will be cleared out, but they had a sense he might be there. 2 pink wards on the lower side of the river.
Still really nice mechanics to not get stunned and be able to open up enough distance to get away from 3 members. So credit to Score, made the most of what was a pretty bad situation.
Yeah. It's level 6 right now, so Void Rush will be available to get him down to that bottom side to defend anything if necessary. Watch certainly doing a lot better this game than in his last series, but that's what happens, you know. I feel like you don't give Watch the Gragas, and he can't have this kind of performance.
And Watch just hasn't been able to get his hand on Gragas since very early in the season. I believe it was 3-1 on that champion, so 5.8 KDA. Definitely the healthiest of his KDAs after he really tanked the Evelyn KDA last time out.
Yeah, and I just feel this is such an important champion for Watch. He never has that big of an effective champion pool as a player, and it seems like you take away that one, which teams learn very early on. And he did, when he started the season, have impressive performances on Gragas. But not so much since he was denied that pick. So I do wonder about the Nautilus over the Gragas ban for KT Rolster, especially since they could have done what Jin did and just take the Rek'Sai away.
A lot invested by Edge onto Hex Core upgrades. He actually has 2 Hex Core upgrades already, very early into the game. So 2,000 gold spent on Hex Cores and basically only boots to go along with the Doran ring. Summoners, all summoners actually available in mid. Vix is there as well. We're looking for the flash engage.
Nice Lantern, pure there, and you can see OQ just playing very well around mid pressure this game. Second time he's come up the map, and they're going to go in. Watch with the explosive cascade. There is Fixer, just gets destroyed. Summoner heal not going to be enough to save him, and that means that Edge has got a flash also as he gets hit by the death sentence.
Excellent rotational play from Najin. Look at the wards littering the dragon side. Lots of blue wards, not a lot of red vision. Siva, Arrow just happy to stay in lane. Still doesn't have that Avarice Blade, so only just really practicing farming. Rotational play from AD carry, not something we usually talk about at 10 to 12 minutes, but nice from OQ.
Yeah, OQ is just doing great. Picks up another kill right there as well. He's really getting rolling, and this is scary. Someday that main carry threat held down, oppressed this game. You can see falling behind in CS, and with OQ getting huge, this is usually the Najin ticket to victory. And OQ just pressing up, pressing forward, just getting that minion wave up, and then moving with the rest of his team to try and get kills around the mid lane, maybe thinking Goong needs a little bit of help on this Cassiopeia after his rather weak laning phase against Jin, and Goong's getting it.
We still have a lot of questions about where this someday Renekton is going, whether it's item choice, whether it's role in team fights. If he's just going to be damage soak, tanky Renekton doesn't really feel like it's really a top meta pick at the moment. I mean, you have to think with the Hex Drinker, he's just going for a laning item. It doesn't really tell us whether he's going to go pure tank from here or really build the damage.
It's not really only a laning item against Najin's composition, though, which is very low on attack damage. So that should be effective into the late game, one would think. And KT, it's another ticket to victory they could have here. A magic resist stacking, a nice early Aegis could turn the tides. considering that Corki just not that big of a damage threat, and Najin has really comped into a very single damage type role here.
But OQ, 13-minute Trinity Force, so he is super powered, maybe mostly magical damage as you mentioned, but still has a lot of turret pushing threat. Now, are they going to try and rotate someone and get him into mid lane, try and potentially break a turret? Because it feels to me, if you just sit in lane with Trinity Force, okay, you're going to win damage trades, but you need to gank the lane and open up Dragon. Just do something, because otherwise you're missing a really strong, powerful timing window for Corki.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Najin has that control, though. They're going to start taking away this blue buff with all the pressure they have at the bottom side. Good call from Najin and from Watch. Can they hand it over? They're going to have to smite it away. They will just smite it with Watch. Get a little bit antsy right there. Cassiopeia just there for the backup, and that means Edge is going to be denied, and it's a hard thing for a rookie to take. Still that same CS gap existing in the top lane.
Had another charge of the smites, no real downside of smiting away from Watch. And again, that's good. You're playing around bot side. Right now, Watch has no reason to go to the top side of the map. Already have the advantage on the Maokai against Renekton. If there's ever a skirmish, you got Trinity Force Corki backing you up, whether it's Dragon or ganks around bottom side. That is the point of power for Najin 15 minutes into this game.
And Watch has his sweeper right now. Could have swept out the Dragon Pit, decided not to. Najin can really just kind of go for this Dragon at any time if they use that sweeper on the pit and just start it.
They have 2 sweepers available.
Nice blue steal.
No, it's both sweepers used, so gonna wait to see. It's smart of Score to play around the top. They are not looking to opt into any sort of skirmish on the bot side. Maybe try and gank the Maokai. He's already very, very tanky though. Smart of Najin. Eventually they do start this Dragon, but complete information available to KT.
And KT knows. They're just gonna give it up. That is close there. 1 HP left on that blue buff. And
thankfully, Cinderhawk can't steal it away
yes.
with the burn. But Najin pick up the first Dragon that honestly they've invested most of their first 16 minutes into engineering the safest of Dragons possible.
Yeah, very methodical shot calling from Najin here. I like the way we're seeing them play the map, and that's a big concession from KT, trading a Dragon for a blue buff early in this game. What is their plan for a comeback? Because you look at the Najin composition, and yeah, they're mostly one damage type, but they still have a ton of late game power with the Maokai and the Cassiopeia.
If I was going to give a tip to one of these teams in the late game, you just have to give it to Najin, because purely Renekton's kind of still a head scratcher. Might be better in the late game, but will probably pale in comparison to the Maokai. They're trying to catch Score, but of course very slippery is the Rek'Sai. A lot of R's today, so just trying to keep on top of them. Rek'Sai, Renekton. No Rengar this time.
Thankfully.
Score mercifully.
I'm really happy when we don't see Rengar in the current meta.
What are you saying? Score is 2-0 on that champion.
Stats don't lie, Papa Smith.
That's true.
They always 100% reflect reality, with all of its many nuances as well.
Indubitably.
Pure.
Score was honestly just showing too much presence around bottom. I don't think there's any real reason to. When you see Avarice Blade, no Infinity Edge Sivir, just kind of want to say, okay, you do your thing. I'm going to focus somewhere else.
Yeah, Watch has been there taking his entire bottom side jungle, has that Wolf Camp Spirit as well, told him where Score was, and Score just simply has to get out of there. Watch actually just knocking him around a little bit, but not really going to come to much. Explosive Cask used, but no follow-up from Goong.
It's a pretty big cooldown, but at the moment probably not going to be too much he can impact. Top lane has actually been the lane that's isolated, and we talked about Black Cleaver. That is a phage completed by Renekton, so definitely some damage coming from the Renekton.
But this means, Papa, that they're really going to have to commit, I think, to a split push for a pretty long time before this Renekton is very viable in some of these team fights. They have to get that attack damage from Sivir, and since Sivir went for that Avarice Blade, the synergy just not going to be quite there with the Magic Shred at this point in time.
So will he be able to outduel the Maokai? You have to think that Someday has been cranking the practice in this champion, his 11th unique pick so far this season. Always been a champion that he's played a lot, so he must be confident in the matchup. Black Cleaver, maybe like when Na picks up a Black Cleaver, maybe that'll be a point of power where he'll be able to outduel the Maokai, even though he's consistently been 12 to 20 CS behind the Maokai.
I'm excited to see it, though. This is going to tell us a lot.
Something.
Yeah, we are definitely going to learn something today. But with the Frozen Heart, inching closer to completion from Duke, though. Will he have the answer? Will that Black Cleaver be enough? Oh, Scored's going to get hooked right there, but it's not going to stop him from clearing the pink ward. You know what I want to know, too, is how are they going to execute this combo? Because if you get the Black Cleaver stacks down with the Q from Someday, Arrow's ricochets are going to be absolutely ridiculous. So there's a lot of AoE attack damage here.
Ironically, it's not only the Q that has to be talked about.
Yep.
Remember, W, especially if it's empowered or Fury empowered, is at 3 autos instantly. So we're talking about basically instant stack, Q, W, and an auto attack. That's 5 stacks of the Black Cleaver already. It's a lot to put on Arrow, but 9 and 2, and if he can get these items going, his auto attacks are going to be shredding down even the tanky Maokai.
Exciting stuff. So, Najin, still presence on the bottom side. They don't have the speed shrine this time. Watch just going to lumber straight through that en route to the bottom side of the map. But Najin just emphasizing OQ's lead right here. Duke doing just fine. Of course, Duke, one of the best top laners in the laning phase in this league, absolutely. And he's holding his own after the early death. Now they're just kind of going at each other in the top side. Duke really winning that trade very easily.
I think KT only feigning aggression around this dragon. It looks like they might even lose their blue buff as well. They just don't have the item timings to opt into any sort of fight. They do not want to call down Someday because he has not itemized for an early skirmish compared to Righteous Glory and the majority of a Frozen Heart.
Vixer going to get hooked. Here come the TPs, though. There is a Tibbers. Doesn't get a stun down, though. But they do secure the blue buff for it, it looks like. Did they get it? No teleport from Duke, however. Who ended up with that blue buff? The Watch did. Okay.
So they used a teleport to lose a blue buff. That's a bit of a Spenu teleport there, Monte Cristo.
Yeah, that is rough. Also, 2 ultimates popped. Nothing at all.
Flash from Fixer as well.
Flash from Pure, flash from Watch, but there are a lot of options left. As Duke takes down the tower, Someday just not able to go toe-to-toe with the Maokai. We saw him lose about half his health for nearly nothing in return. On the top side. And now the teleport. They want it. Well, Duke is just going to awkwardly be really slow. He doesn't even have boots.
The teleport mechanics, not notable in the 20-minute span of this game.
It did, however, push them off the tower and get the turret. So, you know, they did use the teleport, but they got an objective off of it. Certainly, it would have been nice for them to get a kill also, but very unlikely without boots, any boots at all going in, that you'd be able to catch up to Arrow and Fixer. Fixer, of course, with the Moby boots. So
Maokai has to respond to the minion wave pushing in. Now, he's kind of caught in 2 minds because Dragon spawns in 10 seconds. Both sides have stolen away the respective blue buffs. Can KT, with a freshly shopped Black Cleaver Renekton, actually answer the first dragon? Because it's just about to spawn. They certainly don't have wards in the area, but without any teleport available on either of the top laners, it feels like the first team to really set up will have a big positional advantage.
Yeah, not to mention Black Cleaver done and Infinity Edge done. This is going to be big. Can Someday and Arrow get the Armor Shred combo down? Because that burst could turn the tides of this fight. Goong spitting out some poison to clog the choke point right there. KT, not a lot of wards around this dragon right now. Najin firmly in command of the bottom side of the river. Arrow gets chunked out just a tad right there. I don't think KT can do this.
Yeah, everyone has cooldowns available. No flash, of course, from Annie, but Tibbers is available. But how do you get on top of someone as Renekton? You have the Sivir ultimate, but it's going to probably have to be closest target. And then do you quite have the burst? With only about 30% crit chance, unlikely that you can take out someone as tanky as Watch, someone as tanky as Duke. And for now, KT just relegated to wave clear duty.
Yeah, nice pushing from Najin. OQ still very strong. Remember, the bottom lane turret from Najin is about 1 hit away from dying, so that minion wave may do work. Actually, it looks like Najin's wave is pushing back out right now. It didn't quite hit, but the side wave's prepped, and that's going to be pretty much a free dragon for Najin.
Excellent position. You can see Pure in a pink warded brush. Nothing KT can do. They're going to try and fast push down and get a bit of turret damage, but even then, not much they can do. So 2,000 gold, that's not really a decisive lead, but 2 turrets and 2 dragons. The neutral game, and remember, both these comps pretty mid-game focused, pretty turret-taking focused. Big advantage for Najin.
KT I agree. They've got to do something right now. They need to use the Sivir and the Annie to start getting picks, to start evening up this gold score in terms of turrets, because Najin is just pulling ahead on the objectives, and they're not going to be getting much weaker. So Someday trying to push through in the top side of the map, trying to get that tower down. They have to get these outers out of the way. And that bottom one should be the first priority because it is very, very low, and that's some easy, low-hanging fruit for them to go after.
Most reliable way for KT to get a pick, of course, is to have ward supremacy and get someone to face check an Annie, someone to face check a Renekton. Both these champions are going to struggle to get big initiations in open areas when there's so much reposition. We've got the Thresh Lantern, of course, Corki has. He's going to go aggressive himself as I speak about him, but just get a bit of poke down. Because they're so far behind in map control, it feels like it's going to be so hard for Someday to do what we know he's itemized for and get on top of a priority member with that Ruthless Predator.
And he's still not able to bully out the opposition. Oh, Score just gets knocked around, has to flash out of that one. Sivir ult used, and they're going to take out, actually, Goom going deep right there. He will pick up the kill onto Vixer, so 1-for-1 trade so far. Arrow, he's just going to die, gets cornered right by the Wolves, and now OQ wants the Phosphorus Bomb. Can he finish it up with Rocket's Flash? Says yes with an auto, and that means 3-for-1 as KT tries to counter the engage of Najin, but falls very quickly. Najin now in firm control of this game. They should be able to get this turret with the Trinity Force Corki.
The first 25 minutes have been all about OQ. Picked up the first 2 kills of the game for his team. Early Trinity Force, now play the Ruin King. He's just got so much items, and they're fighting around his power spike super, super well. But KT, they haven't really drafted a team that can afford to wait out the Corki power spike. It feels like they wait much longer. They're just not going to have the tools either in team comp or in resources left on the map to really be competitive.
Najin has done such a good job of defending this bottom turret, though, so that KT can't get those resources. Even though it's just been hanging by a thread, the last hit has not come through, and that's helped Najin get more control over the Dragon consistently in this game, and that has been a major, major factor. As Fixer starts walking into the top side, KT just doesn't have any good place to put pressure right now. And if we dial it back and remember how this game went, so much of it was based on OQ getting the kill onto Someday. If that hadn't happened, that was basically the perfect thing for Najin. Corki gets into his power spike, goes back to the bottom lane, uses that advantage to shut down Arrow and Fixer. Meanwhile, Duke's ahead. Someday was behind from the death, and they were able to just leave Maokai alone in the top lane. And now KT really has very few answers.
I'm sad to say that I don't feel like we're going to get a good answer about what exactly Renekton will contribute to a team comp. I mean, kind of the big word that sticks out for me is reliability. We all know what Maokai can do. There's a reason why you buy a Catalyst, maybe a bit of magic-resistant armor, and he kind of does this thing. He's very reliable. The thing that was reliable about Renekton a year ago was that his laning phase was just oppressive. You knew that he would bully around laning phase. He'd have pressure in top. Maybe you could invade with your jungler. You'd win 2v2 skirmishes. When you take away that reliable early game pressure to slightly improve what was always a traditionally weak late game, you're not going to have any sort of reliability in the late game, especially when you're behind. So if he's kind of a risky champion that can potentially snowball against a super reliable top laner, you kind of see why he's kind of fallen out of the meta. It's just there's better champions that can do better things in the late game. Hecarim, for example, stands out as a champion that also doesn't have the best of an early game, but man, what a late game.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. Is the late game buff to Renekton enough to justify this pick as opposed to a Hecarim, which kind of wants to accomplish the same thing in terms of damage? And I'm not sure that it is. I think I agree with you there, at least from what we've seen so far. Someday he's going to clear out the wards right now. OQ playing very safe, gets a QSS. He says, well, there's an Annie on the enemy team. I'm ahead. I can afford this item right now. And how does KT get back into this game? It's by killing OQ with Annie and Sivir, and that is much less likely to happen now.
Looking like a tall order. And I guess just to complete the thoughts on champions at Renekton, there's a reason why the meta exists. It's because the champion picks that are popular are very reliable in accomplishing a goal. And when you take away the early game, Renekton doesn't really reliably accomplish anything.
Yeah. I agree with you.
I mean, Black Cleaver's nice itemization. He's sitting happily on 20% plus cooldown reduction. He's building towards more magic resist. The Aegis that we talked about has been completed by Score. It's just, as you mentioned, nobody on this team has any threat onto OQ. So even though he's not on the Vayne, which perhaps could have done even better in this scenario, he's still really happy.
Yeah, and because the Annie is the primary engage and OQ can just cleanse it and Valk out, there's no other gap closer that they have. Renekton and Rek'Sai will be very easy to kite for this Corki. The one thing that you kind of have to bank on right now is that Edge gets some sort of ridiculous poke combo off on him and you're able to burst him down, but he's got lifesteal as well, so that makes it even harder to deal with.
And Edge walking up to poke opens him up to poke from OQ himself, so that trade's going to be more reliable for Corki because he outranges quite significantly on the Rockets. So, wow, this is OQ going super aggressive. He has the cleanse if he needs it, pops it. He's actually turning aggression onto Arrow. He's super low as well. Somebody's going to get into the back line.
OQ just kiting this out. There's the explosive cast, and Someday finally finds OQ after he aggressively valked into that fight. Is Someday going to leave this alive, though? Goong has got him in his sights. There the E. Flash forward. More Twin Fangs. That's going to be a kill for Goong. And then they just back out for the turret. I mean, Najin just doing a wonderful job of snowballing this game. It was really about that first blood, and everything since that point has been Najin playing around the first blood and never giving KT a moment back in this one. This is such good shot calling from Najin.
And it's one of those situations where the game was decided by an early move, but it didn't need to be. It's just that Najin understood what they had and played it. So we're going to see the replay. OQ kind of has one of his OQ moments. Goes very aggressive into Vixer, doesn't even pick up the kill, then has to change target onto Arrow, who gets hooked. OQ will eventually go down, so Someday finally gets his man. But it's a bit of a hollow victory.
Yeah, it is, because everyone just piling through the choke right there. Doesn't matter if OQ goes down. He already forced the fight he needed to force right there, and they're able to pick up even more kills. Love that flash by Goong, by the way, for the finisher.
So much movement speed, of course. Once he'd hit the Q, was understanding that he could get multiple Twin Fangs in if he flashed in. So, look, Goong's played a lot of Cassiopeia, 4 out of 6 of his last games. Clearly has Zion for that champion, despite what was a really poor performance against Jin Air last time out.
Yeah, this time turning it around in a very big way. And now Goong just going to take the blue buff. Both teams taking the enemy blue buff because Najin has been very bottom side and KT's been playing mostly top side this game as far as junglers are concerned.
Bottom side has opened them up 3 dragons though, Monty. That's probably the big advantage that we can say from playing the bottom side of the map, and no true Baron pressure from KT.
So let's play, what item is Someday building? Is he completing his Maw right now?
He is
the question. That would be very early for a Maw of Malmortius.
Well, look, it'd be very late for a Tiamat, so we're going to say it's going to be the Maw.
It would be. Hey, Frozen Mallet.
I don't know about that one, Monte Cristo.
I don't know about that one either, but I don't think that finishing the ball right now is too great either. All right, KT looking for an angle right here. Najin has their mid-pressure set up already. They have the Trinity Force Corki. They're not going to commit to that, though. They want the fight instead, and he's going to back off to the Baron pit. KT does have some decent wards around the Baron right now, and Najin decides it's not the time. We're already in the lead.
They have a good wave push in bottom. Actually, they popped the ultimate.
Yeah, saw the recalls coming in, but that is a wasted Civarold right there.
By the master of the Scuttle Crab himself.
Well, I think that KT just has to try things at this point if they want to get back in. At long last, Papa Smithy, the bottom turret goes down. 32 minutes into this game, that's only the second turret for KT.
It just means they have a deceptively large gold disadvantage. You might say, okay, it's only 3,500 gold, 32 minutes, not massive, but given their scalings, given champion picks like the Renekton especially, Siva's usually a champion that has either a CS advantage or has a lot of assists or just is doing particularly well. Has 100% kill participation, but when there's only 2 of those, not that great.
Definitely not a lot of gold in the bank right now. Still, only about 3,000 up for Najin, so it's not out of reach for KT. It's just those dragons that are really going to start to oppress them right here. And the relatively weaker scaling overall. Let's see how they can do. Najin now trying to get in onto this Baron, but there's a large ring of wards around that objective that KT have managed to lay down. Some of them even deep right there, even if they don't have eyes on the Baron itself. Score looks for an angle. Watch just going to body slam out.
And this is something that Najin should understand. Given that they've been playing around the bottom side of the map, given that they know that they've been trading blue buffs consistently, the one thing KT has achieved in 33 minutes is solid ward control and general control around the top side of the map. The crucial factor there is that despite all of that, of course they didn't really have any Baron threat, and they haven't even snowballed a big CS advantage for the top lane. Score gets the unburrow, but Lantern's available.
Such defensive play from Najin. They seem to have an answer every time when KT wants to play aggressively, when they want to go on the attack. And they've avoided the Sivir ult. They've avoided the anti-stun. These are the crucial things that could lead to picks. And then a big Baron play right now. Dragon number 4 coming up in under 2 minutes. No one has wards down there, but with Najin's big recall, this is their time to set up and just continue to pressure that Dragon. Score gonna get hooked. They're actually going in. OQ gonna Valk forward onto that watch there as well. Score over the wall flashes, and oh, that was a very bad explosive cask from Watch. He could have finished that kill.
The early season Gragas mechanics elude him for a little bit there, Watch, so they don't pick up the kill and do expend the summoner and an important teamfight ultimate.
He just plopped it down right in front of him, but it was after Score had flashed, so he 100% had time to hit that ultimate. Just a misplay. It
was a very shallow barrel.
A shallow barrel.
Yep. Reminds me of when you flash Fizz ultimate and it just kind of plops out at your feet.
That is truly sad.
Very depressing. Goong finishes Death Cap. I believe he has his 3rd evolution of his passives. Has 700 AP already and a Void Staff. So he's feeling pretty comfortable. He doesn't quite have the QSS, but with the effective health from the Seraphs, even he is going to be quite hard to DPS down as a mid-range mage.
Yeah, and he's been following up as well on more aggressive plays by his teammates. I mean, OQ can just Valk in all he wants right now, honestly, and Goong will just clean up the fight. OQ taking a nice chunk of farm down at this bot lane. Someday, Desperation Baron. Now they see OQ on the bottom side. KT, they've got to do this to get back into this game. This is the right call given the circumstances. Someday getting low right now. They're going to go on to Duke right, but so much damage coming through from Najin. Can they pursue Pure? Nobody's onto him yet. Someday will take that kill. Goong with the Reduct in the back. Goong going to flash backwards. Has Twin Fangs down. Chilling Smite onto Goong. Score going to hunt him down. Is he? No. Summoner heal from OQ will save him in the end, and that is 2 kills, or 1 kill for 3 rather, in favor of Najin. But you know what, Papa? I think they had to go for it. That was their shot back into this game.
And the team fight was looking excellent, especially because Someday did turn the pickaxe into a Hydra, so he had so much damage without OQ there to DPS him down. They were looking pretty good, but of course OQ rotated, has so much mobility. Easy Baron for Najin to pick up, and as you mentioned, if they didn't make that play, it just felt like the overwhelming pressure of this game would have won Najin the game anyway.
Right. I mean, you have to look at the circumstances when teams make decisions about that. Yeah, because you could say, well, that was a dumb Baron. And it was kind of a dumb Baron as we look at it, but it was the only shot they had. That was a really good explosive cast from Watch, by the way, into the combo.
So watch how much damage Someday is doing in an AoE with the Ravenous Hydra complete. Goong eventually able to flash and kite him away, of course, gets a lot of movement speed from the Q, and that's when OQ shows up, and man, this guy has a lot of damage.
Yeah, he certainly does, and that's going to be Dragon number 4. So, as I was saying, when teams make decisions like this, you're but KT, you're very far behind. You know you're not going to be winning these team fights in a 5v5 situation. You see that Dragon number 4 is nearly up, and you know you can't fight it. So if OQ shows on that bottom side and gives you a glimmer of a chance to take that Baron or to force a 5v4 fight with all your CC and your speed, you have to go for it. So I think KT absolutely made the right call. It's just too little too late.
And they have a massive amount of burst damage. If they can get 2, 3 members before OQ groups, remember, OQ's got sitting on 10,000 plus gold worth of items. The goldie doesn't mean much if it's a true 5v4. They tried to force it, didn't quite get the engage they needed. Now they're watching as multiple things go against them. It's going to be the turret, not quite the inhibitor yet, but Najin, they're such a tanky frontline for OQ to free damage behind.
I'm just really impressed by Najin this game, Papa, because they haven't shown this level of competency at shot calling. And when we talk about Najin, normally we say things like, wow, look at how good individually all their players are, but and they're OQ. What the?
OQ walks up to a full damage Renekton, has to flash away. That was a bit of another OQ moment. First one baited in a good engage. Might still get one here, but we see the re-engage.
Well, I mean, KT has to go for it. They already chunked out the AD carry. They've got nothing to lose in that situation. Wow, OQ, you know, I thought he was over the OQ moments. He didn't die right there, but he's had a few very strange Valkyries this game.
Remember, he's moved over to a champion with an 800 range escape, so maybe he can get away with more OQ moments with QSS and the Valkyrie available. They still get the turret, profiting from some questionable maneuvers.
There's a hook on to Someday right into the W from Renekton. Can they finish him off? No, Someday just takes down Pure to about 20% HP.
Draws out the Mikhails, which is a 3-minute cooldown. Again, these small victories, they might have meant something 20 minutes ago, but given how far Najin is ahead in the objective game, a game that KT opted into with this mid-game comp, there's not much they can do.
No, there's not. But like I was saying, Najin, we talk about these guys, we say, look at how good they are in lane. Duke, OQ, so lane dominant. Goon, capable of snowballing off of a few kills. But we don't think of them as having very clean shot calling or snowballing, sometimes making very critical late game mistakes. But Najin, this game, has been incredibly clean. And this is what you want to see from a snowball. How tiny of an advantage can a team take and then use it to win the game? And Najin's case, it was the first blood. We talked about going in here. Who's going to get ahead? Is it going to be OQ or Someday? Because that's going to have a very large effect on who can carry the game. This time, it was like a perfect dream setup. OQ gets the first blood onto Someday, and it's just been a massive snowball accruing from Najin since that point.
And in many ways, Najin is emulating the performance that Jin Air showed us 2 days ago against Najin and really blew Najin away when they were on a 4-game winning streak. Najin just didn't get much done that series, watched as a better team when it came to rotations and early play, blew them away in the early game and stacked objectives. Look here, 40 minutes into the game, 6 turrets down, 4 dragons to 0. Very Jin Air-esque in how they've played out this game.
And I think KT has to deny the Gragas in the next game because Watch has been a major factor. Watch here, in fact, may have an MVP performance, honestly, because of how hard he's been able to shut down with his jungle pressure. And now they looking to wrap around the topside turret. Duke on mid lane clearing duties, but someone's going to have to go back for these super minions, and that mid inhibitor turret is quite low.
Yeah, so much damage, and of course the Trinity Force procs means they will be able to take down that objective. Watch after Gragas goes to Evelynn and potentially Cinderhulk Lee Sin. Definitely not places of power compared to Gragas in this meta.
So another inhibitor will fall here for Najin mFire as they set their sights on the last tier 2 turret that KT has in this game. Should be quite simple.
Renekton's drawn to dealing with the super minions and bots, so this is by far the safest objective for them to pick up. 5th dragon spawning in a minute and a half, Baron in a minute 45. KT, they might dream about forcing some sort of trade between those two objectives, but given the fact that they've had no time to put down any wards in the area, it's a bit of a pipe dream.
Yeah, it is, but nobody can take the Lantern. Pure just stood there for a long time for no reason. OQ says, I've got my own movement ability here. Valk's out.
Picks up an Infinity Edge. He could have gone for the Mercurial Scimitar and a bit more defense.
No,
that's not the OQ way.
Could have picked up, you know, a Bloodthirster for increased safety, perhaps against this high damage Renekton, maybe getting a little bit of a shield, but I like it. Just that's why I think OQ is fun to watch. Balls of steel.
You know how you get the most safe as an AD carry? You kill all the enemies, and then you're really safe.
The best defense is a good offense. That scenario, right? Do you subscribe to that philosophy of League of Legends?
I believe that is the title of the music video of OQ's career.
Yeah. I thought it was just the title of the LPL, but
you know, can't disagree with that.
All right, so Najin here, just waiting very patiently. This is going to be the apocalyptic final battle that KT has to fight if they want to have even a pipe dream of winning this game, unless they want to try and trade for Baron. But OQ can just solo the dragon right now while the rest of his team threatens Baron out of the mid lane.
We'll see where Najin go. They're trying to create as much pressure as possible around this choke. KT knows the dragon is spawning. Just now is live. This is Cassiopeia and a 6-item Heroic. You know that this dragon is going to die quick.
And there's Watch comes in. There it is, number 5. And the battle begins immediately. Fixer falls almost instantaneously. Someday tries to get to the back line. OQ just has too much damage and takes him out through some kiting. Score finds himself in the middle of 4 for a double kill for the OQ. And now Duke is on teleport duty into the base. There is Someday on your screen right now. Not looking too happy about how this game has gone, but what incredible shot calling from Najin this game. That is really the major factor, and this should be the easy push to a win. A surrender, actually, for KT Rolster. They're done with this one. They want to move on to game 2.
And it's a significant thing that Najin mFire's cleanest victory of the season is against a team like KT, who's right there with the same exact record. They obviously examined what brought them down against Jin Air, but played such a controlled style. They always had the pressure around the bottom side of the map, and monopolizing Dragon brought them a lot of the advantages that allowed them to close out a very comfortable victory.
And now it's going to be about that adaptation, right? Because even though KT got some comfort picks like that Sivir, they tried to go for the Renekton. Maybe a little bit questionable in terms of their ability to really get Someday into a place to carry. But Najin